Thank you for joining us for the second half hour of Local 3 News at 4. I'm Cindy Sexton.
And I'm David Carroll. Congressman Chuck Fleischmann is laying out his priorities.
And they include avoiding a government shutdown and funding on the ongoing wars in the world. Dallas Payton has more. Dallas.
Cindy, David, Chuck Fleischmann says his top priority is getting a budget for the country. The 2024 fiscal year for the budget began on October 1st. Now, 3 months later, there's still no budget. With the no budget for the 2024 fiscal year, U.S. Representative Chuck Fleischmann says the United States has been running on a continuing resolution.
What that means is the last year's budget, the year before that. That's no way to run a business, and that's no way to run a country. So what we will be doing, hopefully, by January the 19th and or by February the 2nd, is having a comprehensive budget for the United States of America that the House, the Senate, and the White House can agree upon.
Fleischmann says he's going to do everything in his power to avoid a government shutdown. Border control has been a concern. Fleischmann says under President Joe Biden's administration, the border situation has deteriorated. He expressed that the Biden administration is finally addressing the concerns because of what's happening in sanctioned cities.
The mayor of New York, we've seen the mayor of these larger northern cities literally being overrun by the costs and human costs, financial costs, other costs by illegal immigration.
Fleischmann says he has an idea on how to address the issue.
What we need to do is have a border supplemental, additional monies for the border to attempt to secure the border. But candidly, I'm afraid right now it's a little bit too little, too late.
More financial aid is needed for those at war, and the Senate and House has been unable to come up with a budget supplement.
Monies in addition to what is provided for in the budget. That supplemental was probably going to have Israel border and Ukraine in there. There is no agreement at this point in time. Ultimately, what I think will happen is Israel will get additional financial aid for humanitarian purposes and also for military purposes.
And we also asked the congressman about President Biden impeachment inquiry. Coming up at 5, we'll have his response. Cindy?
Right, Dallas, thank you. If there is a government shutdown, here are some things that could be impacted. There would be no on-site health inspections. Air travel would be strained because TSA agents would not get paychecks. No visitor services would be provided in national parks, but the parks would still be open. Military members will continue to work, but they will not be paid. Now, here are the things that would not be impacted. Social Security and Medicare recipients would still get their benefits, but it might be harder to reach a representative. U.S. Postal Service will continue to run as normal. State and local governments would not be impacted and would continue to operate.
The migrant surge across the southern border is at a record high. Border Patrol agents encountered some 300,000 migrants last month. Customs and Border Protection process some 10,000 migrants each day. About 7,500 migrants from 24 different countries are marching through Mexico toward the border. A senior Hamas leader has been killed in Lebanon in a drone strike. 2 other members of Hamas were also reportedly killed. Several others were injured. Lebanon and Hamas are both blaming Israel for the strike, but Israel has not taken responsibility.
The Israeli military says it is pulling thousands of troops out of Gaza for now to pace itself for the long haul. Tensions in the Middle East are rising. Over the weekend, Yemen-based Houthis, backed by Iran, tried to hijack a container ship in the Red Sea, shooting at U.S. Navy helicopters. U.S. forces then sank 3 Houthi boats, killing everyone on board. The Houthis say they are targeting Israeli-bound ships in solidarity with the Palestinians, but have repeatedly attacked ships with no connection to Israel.
The point where the diplomacy must lead in all of this so we can keep this war local between Hamas and Israel.
As the war rages in Gaza, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says the conflict will take many more months to end.
Israel's Supreme Court struck down a law that curbed the court's power. The law, backed by Prime Minister Netanyahu, was part of an extensive overhaul. It removed one of the court's tools for halting government decisions it considers unreasonable. If the government fails to honor the decision by the High Court, Israel could face a constitutional crisis while it fights a war with Hamas.
Now we want to send it over to meteorologist Cedric Haynes live in the Storm Alert Center.
And I'll say this, it's cold today, but at least the sun was out. That just made me feel better.
Very nice.
Yes, it makes all the difference in the world. I'll tell you what, the sun being out and also the wind, not as strong as yesterday. Man, it's just such a big change there. But as we look at the morning low temperatures, it was a cold start today. But even though temperatures dropped down into the 20s in many spots, the wind really made it feel better when you stepped out the door today as opposed to just yesterday, actually. And of course, right now, not bad as well. 49 degrees in Dalton, 48 in Cleveland, but 50 degrees still in Chattanooga. In fact, only 50 on the map left. You had temperatures in the upper 40s to near 50 in many spots this afternoon. Again, the wind fairly light out there, only at about 4 or 5 miles per hour out of the north compared to 15 to 25 miles per hour that we saw yesterday at this time. And so the wind chill, yeah, it's there, but it's about a degree or two cooler than the actual temperature. So we've got some high clouds building in from the west, and those high clouds will continue to kind of stream into the area. That's not going to make it completely cloudy, but you'll notice probably already seeing that filtered sunshine, and that will continue for the next hour or two before the sun sets. Now, you can see our next weather maker over Texas. It doesn't look like much, but there are some showers and thunderstorms breaking out there near the Dallas area. We're going to be watching that system as we go into the next 24 hours. So again, out there right now, not too bad, but we'll see those clouds continuing to thicken up as we go throughout the overnight hours. Tomorrow morning, we'll wake up to plenty of cloud cover. And notice we can see some scattered light rain moving in around midday and into the afternoon hours. But I do want to stress a lot of this is probably going to be light across the area if it makes it to the ground. But we'll watch that, especially over towards the Blue Ridge in the evening hours where we could have a snowflake or two try to mix in with that rain as well. Now, coming up in just a few moments, this is not the only chance of rain. In fact, this may be the, well, we'll call it the smallest rain chance we have out there for the rest of the week. We'll talk more about 2 more impactful systems heading our way in just a few moments, guys.
Thank you, Cedric.
And coming up next, police identified the man they say caused a deadly crash in New York. Why did he do it?
And a new law in Tennessee raises the penalty for people found driving while distracted. Rochester police say a Syracuse man intentionally crashed his car outside the Kodak Center on New Year's Day, killing himself and 2 others. Officials confirmed Michael Avery made multiple gas and gas container purchases before the crash. 2 people died at the scene. At least 9 others were injured. The suspect's motives are still unknown, but officials said there is no evidence of a political or social bias at this time.
Although the motive behind the crime remains unknown, the conversations we've had with his family so far leads us to believe that Avery may have been suffering from possible undiagnosed mental health issues. At this time, we've not been able to identify that there was anyone else involved in the crime or that it was part of a larger plot.
They will continue that investigation to get to the bottom of it.
A federal appeals court rejected Michael Cohen's attempt to revive his lawsuit against Donald Trump. Cohen, Trump's former attorney and self-proclaimed fixer, accuses Trump of retaliating against him for publishing a book critical of Trump. He says Trump, along with former Attorney General Bill Barr and other officials, violated his constitutional rights when he was thrown into prison after criticizing Trump. The appeals court said Cohen was able to get an injunction releasing him from prison to home confinement, and the court says that was sufficient to meet his claims.
Harvard President Claudine Gay announced she is stepping down. Gay's decision to resign comes in the wake of staunch criticism for how the university handled allegations of anti-Semitism and amid scrutiny for instances of alleged inadequate citation in her academic work. Gay became Harvard's 30th president last summer. Her tenure will be the shortest in school history. She will remain at the school as a member of faculty.
If something happens, we know how to evacuate them out of the country.
The death toll is climbing in Japan as first responders sift through the rubble left behind after an earthquake. And new at 5, how UTC officials are making sure their students studying abroad is safe.
And an airplane crashed onto an interstate highway in Asheville last month, injuring several people. Find out what led to the emergency landing.
We have those stories and much more coming your way in less than half an hour.
We'll be here for you starting at 5.
If you drive distracted, you now face tougher penalties. A new Tennessee law is meant to keep all of us safer on the road.
Maria Guzman has the story.
And the typical text message is about 4 seconds.
It just takes seconds for a drive to turn into a crash or even a deadly accident.
Someone can pull out in front of you. A car that's coming towards you can veer into your lane.
The Eddie Conrad Act is named after a Middle Tennessee businessman was killed by a distracted driver in 2020. This law now increases the number of points charged for a distracted driving citation. If a teen driver is caught a second time driving distracted, they can receive 7 points to their driving record, this leading to a license suspension for a year.
What we've got to do is sell safe driving to the teenagers.
People over the age of 18 can face a 4-point record the first or second time, 5-point the third time, and a fine up to $50.
We see selfies, we see texting, and a lot of makeup is put on by drivers. They're putting on makeup, and they're talking to their children in the back seat.
Championed by lawmakers Mark Pody and Clark Boyd, this law specifically targets young drivers.
There is an uptick in the juvenile rate of distracted driving.
According to numbers from the Tennessee Highway Patrol, people between 16 to 30 years old are more likely to drive distracted. From 2022 to 2023, more than 3,000 people between 20 to 34 years old drove while being distracted, while about 900 were over 65 years old.
A lot of numbers there. Maria Guzman with that story.
And if you're driving at 70 miles an hour and you look at your phone for 4 seconds, you can travel more than the length of a football field during that time. Kind of puts it in perspective.
Can happen, yes.
2 other states in our area also have new laws for drivers. In North Carolina, anyone with a learning permit will now have to hold it for 9 months before getting their driver's license. And in Alabama, amendments were made to the Mandatory Liability Insurance Act detailing which vehicles can be on the road.
Another new law in Tennessee is helping former inmates find work and keep it after they are released. It guarantees former inmates of felony crimes the documents and photo ID they need to get a job. The process will start 9 months before an inmate will be released.
You can find out more about the new laws on our website. Well, this is one of those lulls, sort of a quiet moment, the meteorologist would tell you, because, you know, we've had a few interesting days.
Yeah, we have.
And there will be some more interesting days ahead.
It was a good day to get out there and enjoy the sunshine, though. Cedric, tell us more.
Yes, and it's actually feeling fairly pleasant out there with that sunshine, but of course it is El Niño's pattern. So that means that we have these active weather systems every few days, and so what is nice usually does not last very long. And you're already starting to see some of the high clouds moving in ahead of our next system. Temperatures, though, right now, look at that, 50 in Chattanooga currently, 46 in Cleveland, Dayton, 45 Athens, 48 in Murphy and Blue Ridge, 50 degrees in Calhoun, and 48 degrees for our friends in Fort Payne. Now, the wind definitely lighter today than where it was yesterday at this time. Winds about 4 or 5 miles per hour, which is not nearly as bad as what we were dealing with yesterday evening. If you can remember, wind chills were below freezing before 6 o'clock. But tonight, it will still be cold. Don't get me wrong. After the sun sets, we go from the upper 40s down into the low 40s by 6, 7 o'clock. And look at this. By the time we get into the evening hours, we're in the 30s for temperatures. So it's going to be another cold night out there. In fact, last night we had temperatures kind of stall in the mid to upper 30s by around 11 p.m. with those clouds. But I think tonight we may be cooler than that. So that really gives you an idea that it's going to be another cold start to our morning tomorrow as we're looking at temperatures in the low to mid 20s in many spots. We'll go with 29 degrees in Chattanooga officially, but areas outside of the city will likely be into the mid 20s for sure tomorrow morning. So give yourself a little extra time to scrape that frost off the windshield, and just give yourself time to warm up the car as well, because it will be quite cold. Now, as you look at the weather map, you'll be able to see we've got some of these high clouds streaming in from the west now. More of those high clouds off towards the north in Lexington, Chicago, over towards Oklahoma City. And again, here's our next weather maker. You can see it's a low pressure system that's trying to get going over Texas. Showers and thunderstorms breaking out there, but the track of the system is going to be interesting because it's actually going to move more towards the Gulf Coast. And so as it moves farther to the south and east tomorrow, that's going to take a lot of the moisture to the south. Now, here's where the forecast gets a little tricky here, because some of the data actually brings that moisture up into the Tennessee Valley, while some of that moisture stays down to the south on the other data points there. So this particular model shows most of it staying to our south. The bottom line is there is going to be a chance of some light rain, especially for Wednesday afternoon and Wednesday evening, primarily from Chattanooga and points south. And within that, as we get into the evening hours, maybe even towards Blue Ridge, Ellijay, over towards Murphy, could even see a couple of snowflakes mixing in. But right now, most of the moisture looks to stay to the south, so this does not look like a big deal for now. But of course, check in with Chief Meteorologist David Carnes here in just a little bit. He will have an update on that potential for that next weather system to move our way. Beyond that one, we've got to focus on a bigger storm system that moves in for the weekend. So again, for us, this first system, most of the data keeps the main moisture to our south, but we'll keep an eye on that. The next system, though, the moisture moves right over the Tennessee Valley starting on Saturday, and that's when we can see a cold rain setting up shop here in the area. So here's a look at that Storm Alert 7-day forecast, 45 for your Wednesday. We've got that 30% chance of a little precipitation Wednesday afternoon in the evening hours. We dried out for Thursday and Friday, but guys, get ready for a wet start to the weekend. The good news is the second half of the weekend not looking too bad with highs near 50. Another good chance of rain arrives for next week.
All right, Cedric, thank you. Turning now to the 2024 race for the White House. It's full speed ahead. The Iowa caucuses are just 13 days away.
Donald Trump's Republican rivals are trying to cut into his massive lead. This as Trump continues to face legal fallout related to issues from the January 6th Capitol riots.
Republican presidential hopefuls are busy on the campaign trail, spending most of their time in early voting states that could determine whether they're able to stay in the race and compete with the front runner, former President Donald Trump.
It is a real uphill climb for anyone to beat him. As you know, as analysts have pointed out, no one has ever had the kind of lead that Trump now has in national polling and then gone on to lose the primary.
Former Governor Ron DeSantis of Florida and former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley will face off next week in their final debate before the Iowa caucuses. They're the only candidates who have qualified and accepted the invitation from CNN. Trump also qualified, but is once again skipping a scheduled debate. He'll be taking part in a town hall hosted by Fox News instead.
Caucuses, in case you didn't know, are meetings run by political parties. Here's how they work. For Republicans, surrogates for candidates give the final pitches after the caucuses, and then paper ballots are distributed to the caucus goers. Those ballots are counted on site. Now, this is the first time since 1972 that the Iowa caucuses will not be the first event on Democrats' presidential nomination calendar. Democrats picked South Carolina to go first this year.
And here's a look at the primary dates in our area. Tennessee, North Carolina, and Alabama will all hold their primaries March 5th. That's known as Super Tuesday. And this is when more than a dozen states hold their primaries. Georgia will be holding a primary the next week, March 12th.
Now the election registration deadline. Depending on where you live, you have anywhere from 15 to 30 days before the election to register. To vote in a primary election, you must be registered with a party, and you will only vote on that party's ballot. We'll continue to bring you updates on the 2024 election calendar on air and online.
You can read more about the candidates on our website.
And here's what's coming up next.
I saw it immediately and thought this is great for our community.
Well, that's great for somebody for sure. Somebody in Michigan is now a lottery multi-millionaire. Senior citizens will soon see an increase in Social Security benefits. They'll receive an annual cost of living adjustment of 3.2% starting this month. That comes out to an average of about $50 a month. This is the third year in a row for a bump in payments.
Someone is kicking off the new year as a mega millionaire. A single ticket in Michigan matched all numbers for last night's drawing, worth $842 million. This is the 5th largest Powerball jackpot and 10th largest U.S. lottery jackpot ever won. People from Grand Blanc Township, Michigan, are excited for the local winner.
My phone started ringing early this morning with friends and family saying, "Hey, did you see the news?" And I saw it immediately and thought this is great for our community. Hopefully it's a local winner is what everybody's pulling for.
The Powerball jackpot has a lump sum cash value of $425 million. Coming up next on Local 3 News at 4, these twin brothers don't share a same birthday. In fact, hey, they weren't even born in the same year. We'll tell you more about what separates their birth.
And in traffic this afternoon, we've got some issues. We're looking on the left there, I-24, right around East Ridge, Brainerd area. It's slow go, but at least it's moving. And then we've moved over a little bit, I-24 Germantown Road, about the same pace there. You see a help truck there on the right there in the westbound lanes. So that's I-24 westbound, a little bit of a roadblock because of a disabled vehicle, particularly affecting traffic in the downtown area, I-24 westbound, around 23rd Street all the way to Market. We're back with more Local 3 News after this.